It should be a bit further ahead in this direction.
Who would build a communications facility on the edge of a cliff?
Shh! Don't talk so loudly. There might be someone around here.
I hope it hasn't fallen into the hands of the government troops yet.
It's quite possible. I'll go scouting alone to make sure.
Are you sure you'll be okay on your own?
I'm sure.
Hey, Julia. Are you really a journalist? How come an American journalist knows so much about a facility in a remote region?
I don't have time to explain it to you. Our immediate priority is to get access to a transmitter, isn't it? I'm going.
And so, as we set our sights on the communication station, tensions run high amongst our party members, as everyone starts to question whether or not Julia is being on the level with each other. Thankfully, at least in the case of Kanto, he's smart enough not to broach the subject directly to her, and instead brings up the possibility that, while being a government facility, there are probably going to be guards ahead. Steve, on the other hand, he's going to be Steve. Still as self-centered as ever, he's more concerned with trying to avoid conflict and staying alive, and not looking at the real possibility that after all the murders we've done, the government soldiers probably aren't going to just let us go. Now, for Pachamama, she's pretty simple. Just need to be careful. That's completely reasonable, and she's probably always going to be the voice of reason in the game. And Lopez, well, he's been pretty open about his concerns regarding all the knowledge that Julia has, and he's not, holding back and talking to us about it, but Kato's smart. We don't really have time to care about who could be lying to us right now. Instead, we just need to keep alive and keep moving forward. And, well, as Julia volunteered, let's go ahead and have her be our scout. And obviously it works out because Kato's assumptions weren't too far off, and indeed there are going to be more military soldiers waiting for us. And as we've already done a few times before, we just need to wait for this guy to turn his back and run forward to a nice little piece of cover here. And yeah, we know what the puzzle solution is here. And yeah, Julia starts to get a little bit more aggressive going forward here. I mean, before Lopez just kind of mentioned that she kind of hid the body there, she definitely just totally chucked that guy off the cliff. But that's okay, because we have finally made it to the communication station. And yeah, as long as we can get in there and get a hold of the equipment, we should be able to contact the commander. But yeah, there is a good chance that there could be more people waiting inside to ambush us. And even though Steve knows what Julia can do, he still decides to turn that sass up just a little bit more. But I can kind of understand where he's coming from. I don't think I'd want to be in a life or death situation myself. Still, Kanto does agree that there is a good possibility that there are more guards waiting inside. So, yet again, we're going to have Julia take point and deal with things as Julia would deal with things. Just gotta make sure and maneuver myself here. There are a few times when maneuvering with the point-and-click interface just does not work out very well, especially if you manage to nudge yourself to what should be the edge of the screen, but you still can't, get the camera to move. And while we could head up that ladder there, it's good to go ahead and patrol around the ground floor here. Because it does give us a view of another soldier just waiting to die. I mean, guarding things. This time around, though, as with most guards, he is armed, but more dangerous than that, he is not going to be on patrol or even turn his gaze away from where he's standing right now, so we are going to have to, attack this from a different avenue. And it kind of showed off what is expected of us with the camera angle, what with a very upward, or I guess sky-based viewpoint. And the good thing for us is that this little upper area here is pretty much free and clear of any guards. In fact, besides another ladder, it seems like there is a door that we can use to maybe finally get inside the communication station. And a control room sounds pretty useful. But yeah, things aren't going to be that simple. Door is locked, and we are going to have to find a key. Doesn't look like we can force the door. But yeah, the main reason to come up here, outside of getting a feel of how large this building is going to be, is also to get a nice little vantage point over this waiting guard. That's right, we're going to have to do even more self-defense. Yeah, it's not commonly known, but the stand your ground in Maruza is kind of the ground is a constant bubble around you, so you can just pretty much stab whoever comes within vicinity of you. Yet again, we are blocked from entering the door, but this time around it's electronically locked. And the terminal to unlock it is right nearby. I suppose that guard could have had a key card on him if we hadn't punted him off the side of a cliff. But as this is a piece of electronics, well, this might be a perfect opportunity for Steve to be somewhat useful. So we can just go ahead and pop out his handy dandy toolkit and see what he can do with this.
This is it.
Even if there's a soldier, he is just a communications man, right?
He's not as simple as that. He's also armed. We have to be cautious.
As soon as we call for help, it'll be over. Let's get it over with quickly.
So yeah, now that we can get inside, we should be able to easily access that communication equipment. But yeah, it's definitely not good to just barge in there with Steve. Instead, we're just going to keep Julia on scouting duty. And hey, we get finally a nice little change of scenery. Up to this point, while you have been soaking in the atmosphere of the mountain, biome, you probably have been missing some little change in weather and setting. And yeah, this is our first opportunity to soak in that and see what other settings the game has to offer. Obviously, it's pretty simplistic, not too overwhelming, but it's at least a little nice change of pace, and it does give us, few options. Door number 1 is leading into what the Spanish call a baños. And there's not that much to it, honestly. I think it's only really meant for men. There's just a door we can't access and a urinal here. And what I can only assume to be the only measure of levity that Aconcagua has to offer, where Julie questions why we just checked out a toilet. Other than that, though, there's really nothing to the bathroom. So let's go ahead and check behind what's behind door number 2. And I think we're on the right track here. I mean, they wouldn't have just triggered this music for nothing. Sadly, we are greeted by another locked door. It's definitely not boding very well for us in exploring this place if every door we come across is locked. But hey, it's the communication room. That's the place we were looking for. But yet again, another locked door. And not really clear where some keys might be in here. Seem that it's for the best that we didn't go in there just yet, because there is a soldier waiting. And as Julia remarks, it is good that we still have the element of surprise on him. I mean, even if we did manage to break down the door, he could probably call in reinforcements, and we'd be pretty screwed. So we'll just keep exploring while he's kept in the dark. And things are actually finally looking up for us because we finally find an unlocked door. In the barracks here, we find this very imposing poster of the despot of Maruza, Al-Sasa. It seems that he was actually the president of a neighboring nation, and he invaded Maruza and took over violently. And as you might expect, the peaceful Pachamama, who's loved by all the people of Maruza, is definitely a thorn in his side. But hey, it's at least good we got a face to the despot, right? Other than that, there isn't too much else to the barracks. Though if you do look on the desk here, you find a bit of light reading. Though, as you can assume with Julia, the diary is pretty unintelligible to her. Guess we can just kind of save that for later. Definitely, as always, worth checking out any of the reading material in the game when you can read it with a Pachamama. Outside of that, though, this building seemed a lot bigger from the outside, and we've actually almost completely explored this floor. Just have these 2 final doors left to us. And while it might seem that the warehouse holds many a useful item for us, instead it's pretty bare bones. There's not too much in here for us. Though if you are keen-eyed, you might notice something on the boxes over here. And it is another health kit. Though for right now, nobody that we care about is in need of it. And all that's left to us is the one final door. We can only hope that we find something useful in there, because otherwise we'll be a shit creek without a paddle. And Boiler Room doesn't really scream out super useful in your sneaking mission, but you never know until you do a little thorough once-over of the room. We've got some barrels. Got this imposing piece of machinery here on the wall. Probably a supercomputer or something like that. Nope. It's just a boiler. And it's good it's doing its job up here in the wintry slopes of Aconcagua. Besides that, the only other thing of interest in the room is this little red box over here on the wall. And in fact, it's with this that Julia suddenly has an idea that might be able to lure the guard out. But let's go ahead and try it out and see what happens.
Verificando el sistema de seguridad. Es extraño, no hay fuego. Otra vez está estropeado. Estoy harto de este panel de mandos.
Wee woo, wee woo. Alright, so the guard knows that there's no fire. It seems he assumes that it's malfunctioning. And that does allow him to leave the communication room. We could maybe sneak in behind him. Just get a feeling that we are way too far away to make our way all the way over there. And yeah, I think he's heading to that little switchboard that we saw in the main entryway. So yeah, he's already managed to turn off the fire alarm before we can even make it halfway over here. And I get the feeling that the room is still going to be locked, so... As Julia's not pulling out her knife, it doesn't look like we can solve this problem by just stabbing. Instead, we're going to have to use a little bit of teamwork to make this dream work. So, it's time to get our much more complicated plan into our where we want it to be. And that requires somebody to be by the button. In this case, we're going to use Steve. And Julia, well, she is back in the bathroom. This is exactly where she needs to be. And we want to go ahead and have Steve set off the fire alarm again. Thankfully for us, the guard does not decide to go investigate the button itself. Instead, he's just going to head right back to the entryway, and as some of you might have noticed whenever we were by the urinal, yeah, it did change to this overhead view. And this is going to allow us a perfect opportunity to get the drop on this guard.
Don't even think about it. If you even move a finger, you'll be swimming in your own blood. Comprende? Okay, baby, take us to the communications room.
Don't hold it against us, man. We just want to use your transmitter for a while.
Be my guest. But I didn't expect to see Pachamama still alive. That means more work for us.
So the government troops did plan the crash, just as we suspected.
Of course. The plan was to assassinate you and make it look like an accident, Pachamama.
How dare you! You have killed many innocent people!
If your assassination plan is revealed, you will never retain political power, since the whole world will not tolerate such an act. Not only did you fail in assassinating Pachamama, but you also got some witnesses to your crime.
So you decided to kill us all to keep our mouths shut.
You are a fast learner. And reinforcements are heading this way, even as we speak.
Hey! What are we waiting for? Let's call for help and get out of here!
You'll never get away.
What do you mean?
Until then, enjoy your soon-to-be-over lives.
No shit, I'm glad I saved that med kit, because we all just got burned. But yeah, we don't need to worry about that anymore, because we've now got access to the communication equipment. We can have Steve just go ahead and call for that help. Just that, as per usual, there's a slight hiccup in that the communication equipment does need a password, and I can only assume that this guard is not going to be very forthcoming with that. Thing is that Steve could probably figure out the rest of the password if we were able to at least find the first half of it. And there has to be some kind of clue sitting around, sticky note with the password just written on it, or some other, piece of written media that we might be able to get a hint from. And that does remind me, there was that diary that we found earlier in the sleeping quarters. And now that we have access to Pachamama, we don't have to worry about any more guards in here. Yes, that does mean a perfect opportunity for her to go over there and check and see what secrets could be lying inside. I will say, though, I do enjoy that it really feels now that the game has left the tutorial portion and is now kind of requiring you to understand and use each person's ability and also have them coordinate together. I mean, it probably didn't seem like much, having one person do something in one room and having to time it with another person in another section of, the map, but it's nice. It's a step up from just get thing A, go to point B, etc. Yeah, Pachamama notices at the top of the page here is a woman's name, and she thinks it might be pretty useful to getting that password for Steve, so just gonna head right back over to the communication room and hand that back to him. And while we technically could have had Pachamama go in here at any point to get that diary, it's only at this point in the game that it would have been recognized that, oh, this weird out-of-the-way name is actually useful to us, so. I think that's one of the slightly annoying things about the game, is that it does gate certain events behind just sometimes very arbitrary triggers. But more or less, that's pretty much a problem with a lot of adventure games out there. Yeah, now that we have the password, I'm assuming that the communication equipment should be open to general usage now. Yep, it does turn out that that was the way to get that password. Problem is, we've run into yet another hurdle as something seems to be wrong with the antenna. Kinda makes you question how anybody was doing anything with this communication equipment before. Maybe it was just set up to talk to the troops that were already on the mountain. Yeah, now it's time to try to fix the antenna. It's kind of a multi-part problem because, well, the first part is we have no idea where the antenna is that's not moving or that we need to move. And secondly, well, there's the problem of where would we actually point it or do anything with it? Because it seems like it's just not in the right position to make the call that we need to. But yeah, some of you might have noticed this weird object on the table here. It's going to be necessary for further exploration, as it's a fairly bulky key ring. And yeah, with these keys we should be able to explore the remaining locked doors in the facility. As you might recall, the closest one to us is the dining room, which it doesn't sound super useful, but there's no harm in just checking it out to see what's inside. It's a good reminder, though, that for the most part, people will not just automatically use items in their inventory. So, even though it would have made sense to just use the keys, she knew she had on them. Instead, we had to select them first and then use them that way. Inside the dining room, we find a mostly clean and intact kitchen. Nothing really interesting here, nothing in the lockers. The only thing that really catches our eye is another document here. But as you might be able to guess with pretty much every document in the game, they are all in Spanish and all pretty much only readable by Pachamama. Now, if you happen to go into this room first while you were looking for a possible password clue, you might think this would be a good way to get it, but it turns out that it is only a communication records between the soldiers on the mountain and I guess the military forces back in the main country. Just kind of covers things we already knew about, such as the fact that we totally took down a helicopter with a raft, which was pretty sweet. And it looks like there might be more troops coming to the mountain, so yeah, it's a good thing that we are going to be getting off this mountain pretty soon. Other than that, though, just a little bit of a red herring, I suppose, if you're looking for the password. For now, though, we still have that one remaining locked door up on the upper area. A hazard to call it a second floor, it's more just a roof. Still, before we head over there, it is good that we kind of explore fully the ground level. You might have noticed whenever we took a nice look at that soldier before we murdered him from the sky, that there were just a set of barrels at the far end behind him there. And you might think that there could be something useful in the barrels, but they are more or less just there to kind of catch your attention and, draw your way down here. So you can see the really important thing, which is a little climbable area down here that we'll have Kanto look into later. For now, with all that in mind, it's time to head back to the ladder and make our way back up to the upper level. Besides the locked door, we also have that other ladder to check out. Yet again, I think it's a place where we could have gone earlier, but I'm not certain if we would have gotten the useful piece of information if we had gone up here earlier. Because, as we are heading to the highest point of the communication station, it gives us a nice vantage point of the surrounding ridgeline, and it's from there that Julia is able to figure out the possible location of where the base might be, which is to the southeast. And that is very, very useful information to know in the future. Outside of that, yep, just a little bit of spinning antenna up here, so that's not the one we are looking for. And all that leaves for us now is, I think, the antenna control room. And that especially seems like the best place to go, considering we do need to get a antenna moving, so... This time around, remember to use the keys first. Yeah, nothing really to look at in here except for this looks to be a lever on the wall here. And yeah, this seems to be a control that allows us to, I guess, turn on and off the movements of antenna, so well, let's see what that does. Now, it is nice enough to show us what it does, but it shows us an area we haven't been to yet. It's just, at this point, there's not many other places that we've been, or not been to, and that just pretty much leaves that one little climbable area, which is exactly where we're going to have Kato go to now. Overall, I'd say that this area does a pretty good job of kind of forcing you and rewarding you with thoroughly exploring everything. Some of the previous areas have just kind of had dead ends, and, places that seem like just a waste of space. But this area seems pretty well designed, very concise, and pretty straightforward with still plenty of action, puzzle solving to it. Though I will say this final quote-unquote puzzle is not well thought out, I suppose. And we get the option to turn the antenna to either the left or the right, and yeah, Kato manages to push it a whole quarter of a direction, so... Yeah, this can be a bit tedious, and honestly, it could have been made easier if they just would have given you maybe a selection to say, like, oh, push it to the south or push it to the northwest or something. But yeah, they don't have to push it that many times. Just I do want to recommend that if you do play this yourself, keep in mind that if you go to the right-hand side with your cursor, he will push it back to the right and make you lose a little bit of progress. Still, we have now pointed the antenna to the southeast, and that means we can hopefully finally make the call to rescue us.
Ready to transmit. Give me the frequency.
It should be 589.27.
Aquí la base Aconcagua. Hemos recibido su transmisión. Aquí la base Aconcagua.
Somos los sobrevivientes del vuelo 203. Respondan, por favor.
Vuelo 203. Entonces Pachamama está viva.
Aquí, Pachamama. Por favor, informe al coronel Casares que estoy viva.
Coronel, tenemos en línea de emergencia a una persona que dice ser Pachamama.
¿Qué? Pachamama, ¿eres realmente tú?
Sí, señor, estoy bien.
Dime tu localización actual.
Estoy llamando desde una instalación de comunicaciones de las tropas, situada a mitad del camino del Aconcagua. Señor, ¿puede venir a rescatarnos? Estamos bloqueados por las tropas del gobierno y las montañas.
Entendido, ya estoy preparando vuestro rescate. Preparen un helicóptero para despegue urgente. Gracias a Dios estás bien. Los rebeldes están preparando un golpe de estado en la capital sobre tu asesinato. Si no pudieras volver a la capital el día de la independencia, este país sufriría una guerra civil.
Lo sé. Tengo que volver a la capital lo antes posible para evitar que estalle una guerra civil.
Por ahora todavía tenemos tiempo. Si la gente te ve, la situación se calmará. Hay grupos de tropas que se dirigen hacia ti. Enviaremos un helicóptero lo antes posible. Deberemos recogerte cerca del glacial Santa María.
Rescue is coming. Let's go to the Santa Maria Glacier.
All right! We made it!
We can't waste time. The government troops are coming.
Right.
Yeah.
What shall I do with this guy?
There's no reason to kill him. Leave him as he is.
You are right. Then... making sure that he can't contact the government troops. I'll destroy the other instruments as well. You guys go ahead and prepare for departure outside.
Okay.
I smashed them totally.
Excellent. Let's move to the Santa Maria Glacier. The snowfield should be down there.
Are we there? Can we stop walking?
The foot of this slope is the rendezvous point with the rescue party.
Hey, listen.
Hey, check with the walkie-talkie to make sure they're on our side.
Soy una de las sobrevivientes del vuelo 203. Adelante, por favor.
Este es el helicóptero de la base de Aconcagua. Se busca recoger a los sobrevivientes por orden del coronel Casares. Señorita Pachamama, ¿está todo bien?
It's okay. The helicopter is on our side.
Oh, thank God! We're safe at last!
What are we waiting for? Let's go down to the snowfield.
Hey, come on here! What? Jeez, what the hell happened?